everyone, welcome back to my channel, or if you are new here, welcome. My name is Janice and welcome back to my channel, or welcome, as I've already said. This is going to be a baking video, and I'm actually a part of my very first collaboration. It's the Easter Potluck and Treats collab. So thank you so much to the hosts for inviting me to be part of this. This is my very first time doing a collab, so bear with me if I don't say everything exactly perfectly right. But it's going to be a baking video. It's the collaboration is about Easter potluck or Easter treats, and so I'm making a cookie that I make most years with using Cadbury mini eggs. The hosts of this collab are Desiree over at Momma and Ellie at DIY from House to Home. I will link their channels in the description box down below, as well as the playlist for all of the other YouTubers that are involved in this collab, so that you can check out both the host channels and also all of the other channels of all the other YouTubers, and you can see what other wonderful Easter treats all of them have made for you as well. So let's get started. As I said, this is a cookie recipe, and it's using the Cadbury mini eggs. Unfortunately, most years, until finally last year, I finally actually got around to making them. Usually what happens is I buy the Cadbury mini eggs, and then they get snacked on and eaten instead of making their way into the cookies. So last year I finally did it, made the cookies, and they actually are really, really good. So I'm going to make them again for you, because when I was invited to be a part of this collab, I thought, well, what do I make that's really an Easter treat? I don't really have anything. I have lots of Christmas cookies that I make, but not really a lot of Easter treats per se. But I do have these. So I will go over the ingredients with you. I have to have a cup of unsalted butter, so 2 sticks of butter, 3/4 cup granulated sugar, 3/4 cup either brown or golden yellow sugar. I usually just use golden yellow, same idea. 2 teaspoons of vanilla, 2 eggs, 1.5 cups of mini eggs, and some all-purpose flour. I did not write down here the amount of the flour, so I'm going to have to double check that. I think it's 1.5 cups. Might be a bit more. Oh no, pardon me, it's at the start of my recipe. 2 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour. So 2 1/4 cups of flour, a teaspoon of baking soda, a teaspoon of salt, a cup of unsalted butter, 3/4 cup each of granulated sugar and brown sugar, 2 teaspoons of vanilla, 2 eggs, and 1.5 cups of mini eggs. So let me pause you briefly and get my bowls and my stand mixer set up. I'm going to do a bowl with the dry ingredients first. So let me pause you just for a moment to get that set up, and then we'll get started mixing our ingredients. So one moment, I'll be right back. Okay, so first up, we are going to combine our dry ingredients, and that will be 2 1/4 cups of flour. I'm going to take a knife to level this off, just so that I'm reasonably precise here. I like to be very careful. Sometimes I feel like when I'm cooking, I can take a little bit of liberties with spices and measurements and stuff, but in baking, generally speaking, I stick right to the recipe. So we have 1 cup, and I just use, as I said, just all-purpose flour. That's the easiest. So 2 cups, and then 1/4. And now we need a teaspoon of baking soda. I know I have a teaspoon in here somewhere. Teaspoon baking soda. I like to level that off as well. Oops. There we go. A teaspoon of salt. I forgot to bring that over. That is in a canister over here. So that is it for the dry ingredients. Now we're just supposed to take a wooden spoon and just combine those lightly together, and then I'm going to set those aside. My dry ingredients, they're ready to go. Put those off to the side. And now I guess I will pull my stand mixer forward. I'm going to start getting my ingredients that I need in here. Start with the... You're supposed to beat your butter and sugars and vanilla together. So I have 2 sticks of unsalted butter. I'm not sure what that noise was, but okay. 1 stick. And of course, this has been sitting out at room temperature all day, so it's nice and soft, which is what you want. It's much easier to blend, to work with when it's at room temperature, so it's good to go. Got a little bit sticking to the foil here, so I might try and take a knife or a spoon and scrape that off because you want to get all of it in there if you can. Use as much of it as possible. Most of it came off easily, but there's a little bit left behind. So let's do that. As I said, the problem is with those mini eggs is that quite often if you don't make the cookies right away, the mini eggs get eaten. And they never make it into a cookie. But I think I've finally gotten past that the last couple of years. So we have our butter. And now we need our 3/4 cup each granulated sugar and brown sugar. So once again, we'll level that off. Make sure we've got, I don't want it to be heaping. We got our granulated sugar, and now we're going to use, in this case I'm using golden yellow sugar. And make sure it's firmly packed in there. Level it as much as I can, just using the bag over my hand. There we go. So we've got 3/4 cup of that. Okay, that is that. And vanilla. And for vanilla, we need 2 teaspoons. Now, where did I put my teaspoon? 2 teaspoons of vanilla. There we go. So we're going to beat that together, and then we will add the eggs one at a time. Make sure that that is locked. And start beating the butter and sugars together. And then we'll get our eggs out. Might have to take some of this off of the beater at some point, or I can see some of the butter is sticking to the beater. Has a habit of doing that. Once the eggs are in there too, that'll also help. I can see that I've got a good bit of butter sticking to the beater. That's okay, we'll just push it off like that for now, and we will add our first egg. Getting that egg in there, getting that liquid will help. Actually, I'll just put both of them in at the same time. I know sometimes they say to put them in one at a time. I don't find that it makes a really big difference if I do it that way. Just in the interest of time, I'm just going to crack both. Try not to get any shells in there. And that is that. Now, let's see. This should help. This should help blend everything together. A little bit of liquid, so start it off on low. Probably bump it up to 2 here. All right. So, oh, and I did not preheat my oven yet, but that's okay. I will turn that on shortly. You're going to be baking these cookies at 375 degrees Fahrenheit for 10 to 12 minutes. So I'm going to be preheating my oven shortly. I probably should be doing that already. However, I have some pans in the oven I need to take out. So I'm just going to, you can probably see the batter's coming along nicely. Okay, and now, just unlock it. Now, I'm going to start putting some of the dry ingredients in. I'll just put a little bit in at a time and beat it a bit, and then we'll come back and add some more. And then I have to measure out my mini eggs. It says to cut them in half, but I find that takes quite a bit of time. So I just put them in whole, and I just let the mixer kind of breaks them up a little bit. So. That's a good portion of the dry ingredients. We'll put some more in. Try and put most of it in. I'm working around that beater. I don't want to end up with the flour all over the counters. So, okay. I think that's most of it. And I can still see a little bit of butter on this beater. So I'm going to push that down in there. Oops, try and get it to go in. You want to get as much in as you can. If you have to, you can take a rubber spatula and scrape the sides down. And I may have to at some point, but for the time being, we're doing okay. So I'm just starting it on one. I don't want to start it on a high speed right away because otherwise I'll get a cloud of flour up in my face, a big mess. We don't need that. Now that most of it is combined, I can do that a little better. And I may not have to scrape the sides down too much because it looks pretty good. Looks like it's faster it goes, the more it's getting off the sides on its own. Okay, let me just make sure, see if I need to push anything off the beater. Again, there's a little bit of flour here that didn't make it in the bowl, so let's just add that. Check this beater, make sure that there's nothing, just make sure there's no big clumps of butter attached to the beater anymore, because you want everything blended in as much as you can. I still see there's still a little bit, so I'm just going to give it one more go round of mixing while I measure out my mini eggs. I'll use the 3/4 cup measuring cup, and I'll just do 2 3/4 cup portions because that will equal the 1.5 cups that are needed. This open. Okay, stop that, and push this down again. Push some of that off of there. Good enough. To the first 3/4 cup. And I'm going to get started, and I'll add some more. Already making noise. You can just take a spatula and fold them in, but because I'm looking to the mixer to help break the eggs up a little bit into pieces since I didn't have them, a couple more in. I'm just letting the mixer do the work. So we're going to just, you don't want them busted up into tiny, a whole bunch of little pieces necessarily, but you know, if it breaks them up a little bit, you can see, I don't know how much you can see in the film here, but you can see there's a little bit of chocolate showing there. So obviously a few of the eggs are broken in half by the mixer, which is just much easier, I find, than having to cut these mini eggs in half. That's just very tedious, and trying to actually hold them still to cut them, I haven't really found a good, easy way to do that. So I just find if I let the mixer do the work, it's either that or, as I say, you can, if you want to have them yourself with a knife, you could do that. And then in that case, you can just take a spatula and fold them into the batter. So I'm just going to mix it a little bit more. There, that should be good. Now, okay, now I'm going to pull it off the beater again. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause you guys and get the oven started preheating in the background, pull out my cookie sheets, and I'll show you what they look like as I roll them into balls. And then afterwards, once a couple of pans are done, I'll show you how they turned out. They're very good. As I said, you know, if you like Cadbury mini eggs and you find them hard to resist, then it's better to get the mini eggs and make the cookies as soon as possible. Otherwise, you'll wind up just eating them. But if you're able to resist and, you know, just make the cookies whenever you get around to it, that's also fine. But these do make a really nice cookie. And it's something that I do only make at Easter because it's typically the only time you can get these mini eggs. So just like my shortbread cookies are something that I make at Christmas, these are the one thing that I would say typically is an Easter treat at this house, because I don't make it at any other time of the year. Largely because it's the only time you can get the mini eggs. Okay, I will pause you and preheat my oven, and I'll be back to show you as I'm rolling out the batter, rolling out the dough. I'll be right back. Okay, now we are at the point of rolling the dough out into balls. For the life of me, I can't remember from last year exactly how many cookies this makes. I want to say 3 or 4 dozen. Probably depends on how large you make them. I tend to make a lot of cookies on a little bit on the small-ish side. I don't like to waste batter, and I tend to want to make, I mean, I don't make them huge, partially because I don't want them running into each other on the cookie sheet. And just, I do make them a little bit, I don't make them tiny, but I don't make them huge either. So this is about what I do, about this size or so. Not huge. And I've got 2 cookie sheets on the go here. I don't know how many other cookie sheets I really have in the house that are good for this. At this point, I have some that are well used and maybe won't be as good for not sticking. So these are the 2 best ones that I have, although you can see they're well used because you can see all the imprints on there from previous cookies I've made. But that's okay. We're going to roll out the first 2 pans. The oven is preheating. Again, you preheat to 375. It's preheating right now, so hopefully, and I'm only going to try and put 1 pan in the oven at a time just because my oven doesn't really fit 2 pans side by side. Or if they do, it would be really tight and then there wouldn't be enough. I like to space them, have enough room between the 2 pans so there'd be some airflow between them. So, and that really doesn't happen in this oven if I put both cookie sheets in, so I'm going to do 1 pan at a time. And yeah, so I'm just working on, I'm hoping that it'll be preheated by the time I get the second pan rolled, so I can get 1 pan going in the oven because it's already 8:40 in the evening. I worked until 7 o'clock tonight, and I just came home from work and quickly I'm getting this batter made up. So roll them out in circles. I just do them by hand. I know some people have cookie scoops. I don't. I just do it by hand, kind of eyeball it. I'm hoping to get at least 3, if not 4 dozen out of this. Out of this batch. And I will probably pause you once I get the first pan or 2 rolled out, just so you don't have to sit there and watch me roll all my cookies out, as I think you get the idea what to do. I quite like these cookies, even though, like I said, I have given into temptation before and eaten the mini eggs before the cookies got made. When I finally started making them last year, they're a simple cookie to make, and they're really quite good. They're really not hard at all. Key thing is just remember that it's unsalted butter that you're using. I believe there's a note in the recipe that says if by for some chance you're using salted butter, then I think you either omit or reduce the amount of salt that the recipe calls for. But it's just, like I said, if I take any liberties in cooking, it's with actual cooking. With baking, I just follow the recipe. So if it says unsalted butter, I do unsalted butter. I'm not, even though I've been cooking and baking for a number of years, I'm not confident enough to tweak too many baking recipes, unless it's something I've made countless times. And this is only probably the 2nd or 3rd year that I've made this cookie, so I don't feel that I can mess with it too much. You probably could, but I don't want to fix what isn't broken, right? So, got my second pan started. Try to get them rolled out as best I can. And again, depending on the size of cookie you want, you can roll them bigger. I make them a little bit smallish because I don't want them running into each other on the pan. But then just bear in mind that it says to bake them for 10 to 12 minutes, but if you make them really small, you'll probably want to watch the baking time and reduce the baking time a little bit accordingly. So I just try and make not a tiny cookie, but not huge. And then usually what I do is I set the timer for 10 minutes and then check them. Some cookie recipes I find you can go right to the full 12 minutes, or if it's whatever the time is, you can go to the max time. A lot of them sometimes the minimum time. And I haven't made this recipe often enough to remember if it needs just the 10 minutes or more like the full 12, but I will let you know tonight how it goes. So again, the second pan is almost ready to go as well, just 6 more. And then I will pause you and show you what the first couple of pans look like once they come out. And at the end, of course, I will let you know how many cookies this actually did yield. I think it'll probably be a 3 to 4 dozen. This first, I have 2 pans almost ready to go here, and that will be 2 dozen. And I've still got a pretty decent amount of cookie dough in the bowl, so I should get a good 4 dozen. Sometimes when I'm in baking mode, I will double recipes. Just because, you know, I like to do a lot of baking, and I bake and I give it to friends and things like that. So sometimes I double recipes, but because this is a baking video where I'm basically showing you how to make this and kind of instructing you how to make this, I don't want to mess around and do a double recipe. Plus it's also 20 to 9 at night, and I don't want to be up till 11 making these cookies. I just want to make a single batch for tonight, and being that there's still another week left till Easter, I could easily make another batch sometime next week if I needed to. Okay, so that is my first 2 pans. This cookie on this first pan looks a little small. I don't think it was a bit sparse on the dough, on the batter for that one. And this one as well could use a bit more dough. Okay, so that is it. That's the first 2 pans. And I'm not sure if you can see the angle I have in my bowl here. I think you can see there's still a pretty decent amount of cookie dough left in there. It's kind of sticky. I can't really take you off to show you, but you can probably see there's a good amount still left in there. So I'll probably get hopefully another 2 dozen out of the cookie dough that remains. So I will pause you for the time being, and I will show you once we get a couple pans out of the oven how everything looks, and of course I will show you at the end just how many we actually got. So I will be back in a little while. Okay, I have my first pan out of the oven. I just checked them a moment ago and the timer had not yet gone off. I had set my timer for 10 minutes, and as you can see they are plenty brown already. So I am going to do my next pan for just 9 minutes because I don't want to have it, I don't want them to be overdone or to burn on the bottom, right? So 10 minutes seems to be a bit too long. Again, the recipe I have says 375 degrees Fahrenheit for 10 to 12 minutes. 10 minutes seems like it's a little bit too long because I checked them at about the 9-minute mark, and this is how they look. So I think I'm only going to do the rest of them at 9 minutes. It seems to be plenty. Probably, so just depending on your oven, you may want to try bumping the temperature back to 350 because most cookie recipes I make are made at 350, not 375. So depending on your oven, if your oven tends to run a little hot, you may want to try 350 instead of 375. The recipe I found online for this does say 375 for 10 to 12 minutes, but just kind of eyeball it. If you're going to do 375, check it at about the 9-minute mark because 9 minutes seems to have been more than enough for this pan. So I would advise to err on the side of caution. If it says 10 to 12 minutes, as this recipe does, check it earlier than that. 9 minutes seems to be more than enough. Or just, as I say, depending on what your oven usually runs at, if it runs a bit hot, then bump the temperature back a little bit. But I'll be back shortly to show you how the rest of them turned out, and I'll let you know just how many I got out of this batch. All right, and here we have the finished product. I managed to get 5.5 dozen cookies out of that single batch, so it's probably just as well I didn't attempt to do a double batch of these. Would have been up all night. But at any rate, 5.5 dozen is probably more than enough. I don't even know if I need to make another batch next week. I do have some special projects that I'm baking for Easter to give away, so I have been making some extra baking, whether it be loaves or cookies or whatnot. But of this particular type of cookie, 1 batch may well be enough. But I wanted to just make sure I did a single batch for this video, just so as not to confuse you by giving you measurements for double batches. So that's this is how they turned out. I got 5.5 dozen out of this. They turned out really well. You can see little pops of color from the mini eggs in them. They're all just cooling right now. So I do hope you enjoyed this video, and if you are a first-time viewer of my channel, I again welcome you and thank you for visiting. I hope you'll subscribe if you are new here. Please leave this video comment down below and a thumbs up if you did enjoy it. Subscribe if you are new. And as always, thank you again to our hosts, Desiree over at Momma Friendly and Ellie at DIY From House to Home for hosting this collab. I will link their channels in the description box down below, as well as the playlist of all the other wonderful YouTubers that are part of this collab. I hope you'll check all of them out as well. And please do subscribe if you are new here and if you enjoyed this content. If you did, then we'll see you in the next video. And I hope you guys all have a wonderful Easter season and enjoy your time with your family. Have a good night, everybody, and hopefully see you in the next video.